If you can just recognize that you hold your own key to that start point, that explosion point, or that drive, yes, people can come along and they're going to support. But even their support can only be as good as you're ready to receive it. So until we get ourselves off the bench first and get ourselves ready to get in the game by doing the hard work, by doing the growth moments, and then preparing to go, then you only be able to move forward. That's the key. Can I give my own self permission first to be successful? You can give it to me all day, Jordan. Mark, your podcast is going to be dope. Until I believe it myself, it really doesn't matter.
Absolutely not. Welcome back, everybody. This is Jordan Murphy with Breakthroughs with Jordan Murphy, conversations about the defining moments that shape our lives. First of all, the episode is brought to you in part by Amazon Fresh and the Amazon Fire Stick. So you can go to the website, Breakthroughs with Jordan Murphy, and check out those offers on my website. Also, if you're listening to this podcast on a regular basis, or maybe this is your first time, and you like what you're hearing, my invitation would be share it. Let people know about it. Friends, family members, they might like it too. Who knows? And if you like it and you want to help me out a little bit, because this is kind of one-man band, you know what I mean? I would really appreciate you going to iTunes and rating it and reviewing it, or Spotify, or TuneIn, or wherever you get your podcasts. It would be greatly appreciated on my part. Also, follow me on Instagram, Twitter. On Instagram, it's Breakthroughs with Jordan Murphy. On Twitter, it's Jordan D. Murphy. So I got a great guest today, Mark Wiggins. Mark is coined by his clients as an outstanding entrepreneur with the uncanny ability to ignite passion and motivate others. Mark, the speaker man Wiggins, is an accomplished author, a trainer, an internet talk show host, and an international motivational speaker. With more than 20 years of experience in the corporate and communications industries as a motivational speaker and a life coach, Mark Wiggins is a driving force for youth, athletes, and corporate organizations in moving you from the bench to the starting lineup in life. You can learn all about Mark and what he's up to at markthespeakerman.com. Mark, how you doing today?
Jordan, I'm doing awesome. Thank you for having me.
Matt, my pleasure. I'm so glad and grateful that you found my podcast and that you had your people reach out.
Yes, that was a great connect in our first conversation. I feel like this is a good spot for a matching message and matching energies for what you're doing, and I love your program.
Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate it. You know, I mean, you have a podcast, I have a podcast. You know, what is it? You do what you do for a reason, right? You're not doing it because you dislike it. You're doing it because it turns you on in some way, right? So what got you into, I mean, you got certified as a life coach. You've been speaking on a circuit. You've got a website. You're an author. How did you get into all that?
Actually, that's a great question. It spins out of the athletic background and coaching kids and coaching programs, and then into when I had my first business. And that's a whole nother story by itself. And once I got out of the business, people just kept coming and asking, how do I, or how does this work? Or how did you do this? Because when they know you're in something, people are drawn to you. They want to know what you do because they're not doing what you're doing, and you're doing something different and you're happy about it. And so people are drawn. So they kept asking. They wanted a mentor. They wanted to understand things. And I was like, okay, well, let's move this over a notch to see how we can formalize this interaction. Let's get around you. You do it for free, you give it away. And at some point you go, okay, this is valuable. Let's go ahead and formalize the operation.
Got it. So when you say athlete, what was your sport of choice?
The sport of choice that paid for college was basketball.
Bam.
I played through college Division II at the University of Alabama in Huntsville.
Nice.
Not the big UA, so it's not Roll Tide. We're the Chargers, but in the Alabama school system, we were there. But nonetheless, they had a college. I got my degree in psychology and communications, and we had a program, and they paid for it. So that was my expertise.
That's fantastic, though, man. So you got put through college, obviously studying and doing what you're doing, but you did it on your skill as a basketball player also.
Exactly. As I tell the people that I deal with and young people, you can get in through test scores and athletic abilities, whatever. That's the easy part. Staying there began the journey. Getting in wasn't as hard as trying to stay there. It was actually difficult to stay there.
Sure.
So get through the door, that's great, but you got to work harder. And that became kind of the formulation of my message. Once you get there, then what? Once you get off the bench, then what?
Yep.
So that's kind of how things moved.
Where are you from originally, Mark?
Cleveland, Ohio, Maple Heights, Ohio, specifically.
Okay. And did you give me a little bit of a Reader's Digest on your background?
Mm-hmm. I grew up in Maple Heights, Ohio. Graduated class of '85. Went from there to Huntsville, Alabama, on athletic scholarship. Played basketball, as I just said. Graduated there in '90. I moved to the Washington D.C. area in '93. I was married at the time. The wife had the good government job, and I came in and got whatever job I could get. And then a couple of years later, we started a business, a franchise, bought into a franchise called Cookies by Design. And the Cookies by Design store went well for a few years, probably about seven. So we beat the mark of 4.5, 5 years.
Right.
Most businesses don't make it. We got to 7, had 2 locations, and then at that moment, the bottom fell out. We had 9/11, we had anthrax, and then after that, the marriage went after about 2 years or so after that. And then the rest of the time we spent recovering and rebuilding. And all through that while I was speaking and training and using speaking as an outlet. You take your pain point, and as you work through, I was working through things and sharing with people that they were going through things. Yeah. So use the platform and develop it. And out of that came speaking engagements, books, opportunities, coaching stuff, and kind of moving it to where that was the base for what it is now. You're talking about the journey piece. That was the start point.
Sure. What was so you grew up in Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio.
Yep.
Not Cleveland, Ohio. What was your upbringing like?
The upbringing was good. I was a Midwest family, working family, middle class. My mom and dad. Dad was a jack of all trades. I think he cursed me with that bug. You can do a lot of great things, but not all of them well. But you'll try anything. My mother was an anchor, good Christian home. We spent a lot of time in the church. I grew up in the church. I appreciated my upbringing. I was involved in Boy Scouts and the band and things of that nature. Not what everybody was doing in the neighborhood, but our house was that house where the door was always open. If you came to my house in the morning before school, you were going to get prayed over. That was going to happen. And we stand there embarrassed, like, oh my God, they're praying. But surprisingly, no one ever stopped coming. So they all start coming through the door,
right?
Get prayed for, hanging out. And my dad, my mom were very, very active with the youth. My dad was very active with youth in the day, so that kind of set the table for me and exposure.
Got it. So trying to kind of get to that little crux you've touched on, and I'm trying to clarify it, I guess. So you played basketball obviously well through high school. You get a scholarship, you go to college, you're in college, you come out of college. Where was it in the timeline that the speaking started again, or the coaching, or the okay, I'm going to take what I've got and give it?
Yeah. So speaking started probably around 95, 96. What happened was we moved in up to DC area in 93. A few months later, inside of that year, we opened our first store. We went to business. Okay. And that was satisfying the need to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to do these things, and I didn't care what we did. Side note, I had no baking experience whatsoever.
Perfect.
I had no marketing experience whatsoever. I had no real hard business experience whatsoever.
Now, this is a franchise, though, right? Which usually they kind of like wrap it up and put in a little package to show you how to do a lot of that stuff, right?
They do, and then they leave you. So you're out here on your own trying to build your team and do whatever. And we were young, too. I was probably 27 at that point. But we, hard work beats talent when talent don't work hard, and we made it. We were thriving. We did well. Top 10 in the franchise. I was actually on the marketing board. Here's how far ago that was, Jordan. I was on the marketing team for the franchise that helped start online ordering. It wasn't a thing. It was not a thing yet, but it was headed in that direction. I was back there putting for the whole franchise to be on online ordering. So we worked it. We worked it well. And again, unforeseen hurdles and whatnot. But I was trying to get out of it. I was trying to get out of the franchise because I wanted to speak. I had an agent at the time. I was speaking at schools, and I love what I was doing. I love that piece. I just felt like I want to speak. I had a speaking bug back then. I was probably late 90s, early 2000. And so after 9/11 hit, it changed the whole landscape in the DC area. We ended up losing the business about a year and a half later. So that at moment, I'm working, hustling multiple jobs. I started speaking with Making It Count, which is monster.com at the time, their speaking division. And basically what we were data gatherers. We were going to the schools with these free messages on how to prepare for college and life after high school.
Got it.
And we would train and speak. And that's when I really started cutting my teeth on speaking. And I loved it, getting at it, speaking quite a bit, and wanted to go full time, but we just couldn't really agree that it was time to move away from the business. And then eventually it was taken from us. I believe God took that from us. It was like, it's over. We need to move on. So that was the beginning of that journey. And you're talking about the breakthrough moments and whatnot. I clearly remember the title of my first book, Permission to Succeed. Permission to Succeed. The only person who needs to give it is you, was the first major book. And how that came about was we were arguing about something, and I'm downstairs, she's upstairs. You know how the fights go. Uh-huh. And she yelled something, and I clapped back with, "I don't need your permission to be successful." And I said, "Ooh, I need to write that down."
I got to write that down.
And I did. I wrote on it and sat on it for 4 years. So finally, when the marriage was over and we're dissolving, I moved out, and I made it my mission to write this book about permission and the process I went through to say to self, you can do what you want to do, and here's how we're going to go do it. Here's what I went through. I went through these challenges and silencing the whispers and changing my the way I spoke to myself, the NLP of things, neuro-linguistic programming. I recognized I was miserable to myself, and that was the time I had to move forward and go. I'm out here trying to regroup as a single man, divorced man with 2 kids, trying to be super dad, make sure I'm present. And to be transparent, I've known you for 37 seconds, but I'll be transparent with you and your audience because I think people are looking for this. I had to deal with the whole issue of being that Black dad that was not around for his kids. That was real. Yeah. It was real, but it wasn't true because I was always around my kids. If you saw me and my kids, I was always there. Yeah. But society had me believing that because of this divorce, I was going to be absentee dad. My kids were going to hate me. My 12-year-old says, "Dad, as long as we get to hang out and you got this house, you will always be our dad." That's all I needed.
So were you living with your kids?
No, we were doing the share thing.
Okay,
I moved out and we were doing the share thing.
And was
but I made sure I was first.
Who was it? Was it half and half or?
It wasn't half and half. It was when they were younger. It was weeks, and when they got older, I became that dad, the every other weekend dude.
Got it. Okay, so I can see that. I mean, the circumstances weren't helping your fear.
Not at all. They're actually fueling it with kerosene.
Yeah, because you're not with them every day. I must be missing something. Oh God, here goes.
Exactly, and again, having that stigma around divorce, having a stigma around being a single dad or dad that doesn't do his part, because it is true. There's men out here who do not, regardless of color, who do not honor their obligation to the kids. Yep. I was not going to be that dude. So I coached their teams. I was showing up, not my days off, and no one, it was good for them, and it was really, really good for me. So that moved forward. But then there came that time where you've got to make the step to go do you. And so I began to speak more and train more. And once I got leveled off, started to really pursue this, how did I get here moment? How did I get to this point?
You mean like kind of taking responsibility for what brought me here?
Yeah. How did I have responsibility and to say that it was okay what you were doing. I think what we do sometimes is we don't give ourselves credit enough for what we do.
Completely.
What we accomplish. And so you are so in the moment of, oh my God, I did this. And you think back to the biggest thing that happened. That whole failed marriage thing was like looming, but it wasn't 100% failure. You had some high moments. You got these 2 wonderful kids. God has blessed you. You're moving. You're still alive. You're surviving. Those are accomplishments. Yeah. Those are accomplishments. You're handling your delegate, your business now. Now the other person may not think you're doing it, but you know what? You're following the letter of the law and then some. So you're doing your job. We don't take credit for that. I didn't take credit for it. I felt short. I felt like I was lacking.
Where do you think? We're human beings, right? And I think, unfortunately, and I've touched on this a couple times in different interviews, but our brain sometimes is not on our side. It's not always on our side. And the reptilian brain, right? That part of our brain, that fight or flight part of our brain, tends to prepare for the worst more often than it prepares for the best. And where do you think it was in there? Because you said, I was concerned I was going to be an absentee dad, whether it was race or just being divorced, whatever it was, you were stacked. The deck was stacked against you as far as you were concerned at some moment. Did you have any evidence to back that up, or was it just a cultural belief?
Oh, it was just a cultural belief.
Okay, so you weren't being a bad guy. You were just like, now I'm a divorced dad. Now I'm going to maybe do this.
Totally a victim of things that are around and believing the hype and not checking the facts.
Totally. Okay, great. And so how long did it take you to kind of get your head out of your ass about it?
It took me a good year.
Okay, got it.
I made it to that first year.
Okay. But you danced around it, but at the same time, you also were aware of the fear or the concern, but you were still showing up in a contrary fashion. Like you were still showing up as a dad.
Oh yes, absolutely. Right. And even more so, like I said, I'm looking for the opportunities that if I were in the house, I would be doing these things. So I had to make sure that I was present and accounted for, whether my weekend or not, because that was what I needed to do. And
where do you think you got the wherewithal to even, because I think this is my assertion, right? I think that most of us get led around by the nose by these cultural beliefs, right? And we actually it becomes almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. And here I am, African-American man. And I'm divorced. And I don't see my kids. Right. You know what I mean? It's like all of a sudden, I must, this is what's going to happen. And you almost just trip into it. Now you had somehow an ability or an awareness. And I'm just kind of curious where that awareness came from, or did it show up? Did you hear something? What was it?
I think, it's a great question. I think that moment came from, my father had passed by then, but we were really, really close. It really came from my mother. My mother, the God-fearing woman, just basically broke it all down. And to sum it all down, just because you're divorced does not relieve you of your responsibilities of being a father. Does not. And that's all I needed. I'm like, you're right. So in lieu of what I should do based on culture standards as a husband lives in a house, let's look at what I can do based on current situations within my capabilities. Yeah. And
moms are amazing. When moms are moms, it's just powerful.
It's dope. It's absolutely dope.
I mean, honestly, it's absolutely dope. It takes your breath away sometimes. I was sharing with my mom recently, because you just reminded me of one of those come to Jesus moments. I mean, I'm not a practicing Christian, but it's just that term, right? That just kind of get in your face, heads up, this is what's up, kind of conversation that only I think a mom can have to their son, to say, hey, get your head out of your ass. And I literally was in this period in my life where this is many, many years ago, and it was dark. It was a dark, dark time. And I was not being my fully self-expressed self. I was shut down. I was depressed. It was all kinds of bad. Right. And I remember having a conversation with my mom on the phone one night, and obviously my mom's known me for a long time, and she knows who I'm capable of being. And I think our moms hear us and see us as who we truly are capable of being. I mean, and I think I'm saying that if your mom is an amazing human being and loves you, you know what I mean? Obviously there's exceptions to every rule, but it sounds like your mom, my mom holds us up to a certain standard, right? And is not willing to let you give up on yourself, right? Not willing to let you be small. And my mom, one night, I was on the phone with her, and she said, I don't know who I'm talking to on the phone right now. She's like, the Jordan I know is not the Jordan I'm talking to.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I knew exactly what she meant. She didn't have to go into long song and dance. She didn't have to break me down, but she knew through the work I've done over the years in personal professional training and development and my own journey and exploration into the self and how to improve and how to expand and be bigger, all that kind of stuff, right? I talked a really big game, right? And I did walk the walk at times. This period, not so much walking, not so much the talking. No, it was bad. And she called me out. And it was what I needed to hear at that moment. And it was simple. It was to the point, and it was what I needed to do to flip the script, to shift the conversation I had around who I was up to being, and to put the past in the past and move forward. So it's awesome that you have that kind of mom on your side.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was the impetus for everything else. You're 100% correct on the support from mom. It don't take a whole bunch of words. It may take, you may have to endure I gave birth to you, I cut all that. You may have to endure all of that first. But at the end of the day, you're right. That person knows you from the womb forward. So yeah, that.
Yeah. And they're not going to, if they love you for who you are and for who you aren't, I would like to believe that anybody, whether it's your brother, sister, uncle, friend, whoever it is, the people who are supporting you, the people who are on your side, I would hope, or I would ask anybody who's around me, who's supporting me, is that they support me as being extraordinary, not my own limiting and small beliefs about myself, but my most empowered, truest self. Sometimes I forget that. And sometimes we need people around us to kind of smack us upside the head and say, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? But so that's fantastic. I'm glad to hear that you had the inspiration to do what you needed to do and to become the dad that, and continue to become, we're always becoming, right? Yes. The dad that you are. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's dope. It was a good time. It was a good time. And again, it open the door for the rest of the growth, and you reflect back on that moment and those moments and go, I am growing. I am maturing. I am moving forward, which is all we really need to never stop on the journey. I don't want to stop. Maybe slow, could be painful, but I don't want to stop.
Right.
And that kind of is the driving force behind the speaking, is driving force behind the coaching, and whether it's athletic or personal or coach, or speaker coaching. I just do not allow people to come around me and not expect me to expect 100% out of them. I'm expecting you to give 100%. You may not think you can do it, but I'm expecting you to.
That's right. Kind of and that's the part of it, I guess what I'm saying is that somebody should be holding you up to a higher standard than sometimes we hold ourselves. And sometimes we need somebody around us to remind us. And it sounds like, as a coach, that's what we do. I mean, I have a 14-year-old son. I also have 11-year-old daughters that are twins, but I have a 14-year-old son. He plays basketball, and his team has not been very good. And he has grown quite a bit. His confidence, his agility, his willingness to go and do a basketball clinic, he is doing and taking steps to grow and to improve himself. Unfortunately, you can't make a coach be a good coach. And he's not been blessed with a good coach. And so a lot of the dads have kind of rallied around the team just to do what we can to, share our perspective on team and share our perspective on what it is to be a winner. Not to say that if you lose, you're a loser, but to say, you know what? We got to raise our game here, guys, and you guys are losing a lot. The last thing I want you guys to do is to get used to that. Do not get used to losing. I want you guys to get, how do you feel when you're losing? How do you feel when you get your butts shellacked in a basketball game. I can't imagine that, but just having that conversation and raising them up. And this coach like, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. I want to confuse, whatever. I'm like, what are you talking about? These kids are hungry for structure. They're hungry for a system. Don't sell them short. And we've taken the kids out of the space where like they have practice on Monday, Tuesday, that kind of thing with the coach. And we've taken them out of that and gone and had separate coaching, separate sessions with them. They're a different team. They're a different team. And we want to show them, look, guys, look what you're capable of. Look what you can do when you work as a team. Look at you, and you all of a sudden you like see yourself or hear yourself saying there's no I in team. You're like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm saying that. But these kids have to get that, and that's a coach has to be tough. Coach kind of has to get in your face and make you uncomfortable. And we think it's like, oh, we don't want to push them. And it's like, fuck that. We do want to push them. We want to push them to be better, to be stronger, to be more confident, to be more courageous, whatever it is, right? But that can be uncomfortable. It's okay.
It's okay. And I think especially in that realm, you're right. It takes someone to make us uncomfortable. And if there's trust involved, and we trust you, we'll take that walk.
That's right.
We will take that walk. We will go fearfully forward and give it a shot. If you believe I can do it and I don't, then I'm gonna believe in you. It's those moments when the coaches aren't trusted and aren't setting the right culture, as I like to talk about. If you don't have the right culture where that's the thing you do, then you're not going to get the response you want, and the kids are going to walk away from that defeated, not having tried, not reaching even close to any kind of level of potential. Right. So then they give up, and then you say, "Oh, these kids, they didn't want anything." No, you were a horrible coach. You didn't get them. They don't have to get you. You need to get them.
That's right.
And so when you get them, you can coach them. You can't treat everybody the same, but you can treat everybody fairly. I get it. I was just finished talking to a group of high school kids today, and we talked about that same thing. You need to understand who's on your team. Some people are okay with brashness and straight to your face. Some need softness. Some need to be left alone. And if you're a coach, if you're not a tactician on people, you're going to struggle. You're not, because you need to give them what they need to perform so they can give you what you want ultimately. If you don't know how to do that, I dare say it's really about you and your ego. And you're not really about trying to make these kids be winners. Forget winning. They're not even winners because you won't allow them to try to become winners. And there is a difference. You are correct. You
got to hear and you got to listen. What I hear you saying is it's about listening to who you're coaching. You have to listen.
Exactly. You have to listen.
And you have to hear verbal, nonverbal. Yeah. Right. You have to hear what's going on. And sometimes they're not saying what's going on. You have to.
They're not.
There's one kid on the team who is particularly confident. He's a point guard, and he can handle the ball. He can move. Unfortunately, because he's one of the stronger players, he ends up feeling like he has to do it all, and he ends up being worn out, spent, frustrated, overwhelmed. Right, and so rather than saying, "Hey, dude, pass the ball," that's not enough. Like pass the ball, great. That's part of a solution, but it's like I want to be able to say to him, "Look, dude, I get that you're out there working your ass off. I get that you're overwhelmed. I would assert that you feel like you're all on your own. How's that feel? That probably feels terrible, right? Like acknowledge that must be feeling miserable. Like no one, you don't feel confident passing the ball. So what can we do? How can we as a team help him out? How can we help him out so that he feels confident that he can pass? You know what I mean? So like you start to break it down and have an open conversation with the kids and say, you know what? Just because you want to shoot 3-pointers all day doesn't mean you should be. Just because you want, whatever these kids want to do, that's one thing. But it's like, let's look at where your strengths are. Let's focus on that strength. Let's improve that strength. And if we want to like look at some places where you can improve, we'll get there too. But like just having an open dialogue with these kids and having, as opposed to like telling them what to do, is having a conversation with them. It's such a balance, right?
It is a balance. I think coaches, they it's a discussion between a dictatorship and a democracy.
Yeah.
Right. In a democracy, I want you back and forth. I need some input, whatever. But in dictator, I'm gonna give you my opinion, and then I'm gonna ask you to give it back to me. But that's not how this works. Yeah, you're the ultimate authority, but if I don't perform, then that's your fault. I love when people try to blame the kids when they lose or whatever, and it's a kid's fault. No, it's a coach's fault. It absolutely is. Same thing in business. If your staff is not performing, your entry level staff is not performing, it's mid level's problem. Totally. You have not taught them what they need to do. You kind of put them out there and expect that they need to do. Just because you have moved from the local community grassroots program to the middle school or high school program, you still are lacking a bunch of skill. Yeah. You are lacking a bunch of knowledge on whatever sport you're playing. My job as the grown up in the room is to teach you these skills and how to be a teammate, how to lead. Jordan, you may ask a question. When did you understand and what leadership actually meant? When did you learn the concept of leadership?
Oh, man. I would say high school.
High school? Okay, when you learned the concept, go ahead.
High school is when I first, let's just say I started to get the conversation around leadership.
Okay, you said some very key. You had the conversation. I assert that we throw people, pick an age bracket, don't matter, into leadership roles because they show some signs, but we don't have the discussion of what we expect from leaders.
Sure.
And so they get out there and they kind of wing it, and they see, he yelled, and he responds, I'm going to be a yeller. Oh, I saw Coach slam. Yeah, I'm going to do that. So they start mimicking what they see, but it's not actually leadership.
Sure.
And so leadership is basically servitude. So if you're not a servant, you can't lead. We have these leaders out there trying to get kids to get into leadership, and they have not trained them on how to be leaders. So there's a gap, there's a void, and then we get frustrated that they're not doing a great job as leaders.
You're making a really interesting point. Because we oftentimes will, like you said, we say, go do this thing, and yet that thing has not been defined.
That's it.
It's not been communicated, and it's not landed. You can communicate it, and it still hasn't landed. So it's like There's a number of different levels to what you're saying, which is, I want you to lead the team. Okay. And they go off and they fake it, right? And like you said, mimic, and oftentimes don't necessarily succeed. But it's like, how do we language leadership to a young person? This was actually was going to ask you about this, because it sounds like you tend to speak to younger, or you do speak to younger audiences. How do you language this topic, like leadership, for example?
Yeah, I do. I tend to, because sports is still my passion, so I always stay in that arena as well. But I think how I language it out to them is, you have to, A, demonstrate leadership, B, put people in positions to be leaders and train. And so that's the only way you can get it out there. A quick story. Here's why I recognize that the conversation of leadership was not happening. I'm coaching my daughter's team. And, I'm daddy balling it. So she's like trying to be the thing and be out there. And she's taller than everybody else. I need you to be the leader. I need you to get out there, take control, take charge, be the leader, be the leader. She looked at me and says, Dad, what does being a leader mean? I said, oh, wow.
That's awesome.
Me, the motivational speaker, trainer, coach, has not told my own child what leadership entails. And therefore, I was like,
what does the word leader mean?
Right. You look it up. It's a self-defining word, but leadership is active leading. Wait a minute. That's not right.
Yeah. So, we need to drill down a little further on this.
So I then had to pull myself over, like, oh my gosh, I failed on that. And that's when I began to really talk about leadership on all levels, because we don't necessarily talk about what it is and how to enact it, to lead it, to embrace it. And therein lies the training moment for every coach who's going to listen, every dad, mom baller who's got to coach a team. Don't talk about leadership and expect it if you have not taught it.
How would you, in I guess simplest terms, because it's easy for us adults to over-explain shit. We almost talk over the kids. How do you do it specifically around leadership?
It's around the work. It's around the work. Teaching them how to do work, how to finish whatever they're starting, how to be on time, how to be respectful, how to lift others up, and how to just flat out work hard.
So by example.
And then putting them in positions to do. So maybe you have them to lead. Let's run levels. On the sports arena, maybe you teach the exercises for stretching, have them run exercises for stretching. You're in the office, you want someone to deliver a brief and take over a committee, but you make them the co-chair before you give them the whole doggone committee.
Right.
You give them position to learn and sit and watch, specifically watching for these items and how they do these things. And then when they're ready to move over, they can continue to at least start while you continue to teach.
Yeah.
I think leadership is more of an action item than it is a description.
Completely. No, I agree. I appreciate your clarifying that. Yes, it is something that is modeled.
Mm-hmm.
You show up as the coach, you show up on time, you do a number of things, and you become that model of leader, right? And then, like you said, you pass that on, and then you put them in a position where they can illustrate that expression of leadership in action. And that in and of itself is leader.
Yeah, and from my position, I believe that leadership is a skill. And since it is a skill, that means it has to be acquired. You may have some attributes. You may have a personality trait that's more bent to that, but you still have to learn how to do it.
Yep.
You still have to learn how to do it. So we don't allow that to happen. We just think, oh, he's a natural born leader. I disagree. I think
there's also something to be said about somebody owning their leadership.
Right.
Like there's something to be said about saying, okay, you're a leader. I'm like, okay, if you say so. But then there's another step there that is to acknowledge oneself as a leader.
Yeah, you have to give yourself to be permission to be that leader.
Right. And to kind of get over the ego of it. And you know what I mean? Because you can easily get caught up in, well, I'm not a leader. Who made me a leader? I don't feel like a leader. You know what I mean? You can get caught up in that. If I'm a leader, then people are going to think I'm all stuck up and big, arrogant, whatever, right? Which is just another piece of the conversation that gets in the way of, I think, owning one's power.
Exactly.
But I think that's also that permission that we can give ourselves that it's okay, actually, to have those skills. And not to make it like I'm better than anybody, but it's a skill.
It is a skill, and you have to own it. I think until you're in a position that requires it, and you may have it and then not really be a leader. Let's be clear. Everyone should not be a leader.
Right.
There's certain people, if you have the skill set, you got the whole kit, but you just don't have the instructions on how to put it together, you probably shouldn't lead. And if you don't have that passion or the desire to put yourself out there, again, in the area of servitude and to help other people to be better for the team, then you're not the one. You're just not the leader. I'm a past president of my fraternal organization, and I don't seek the limelight a lot. I like the background, as most people say. I like the background, but you know what? You need to be the leader. And so it took me a minute to get comfortable leading a room of type A, high level, highly educated African-American men to go somewhere to do, missions. We're trying to do different things or whatever in our community and whatnot. And from time to time, I began to recognize a couple of things. One, people love to be asked to do stuff. If you ask them, they'll do it. Two, at the highest of highest moments or the lowest of lowest moments, they look to the leader to be that leader, ego and all. We need you to take control because we have no clue. And if you're unwilling to be in those positions, then you probably shouldn't lead. And it wasn't until I had to be put in that position to recognize I really can lead. I really do have the skill set to lead, and I should do it and embrace it and be okay with whatever they got to say about it. That's cool, but I know I did my job. I did my best.
Yeah.
Those are crazy moments, but you recognize you really can lead.
Yeah. I mean, it takes something, and there is something to be said about, I guess, quote unquote, glory in being a leader, but there is also sacrifice in being a leader.
Yes. Lots of it.
Yeah. And I think people forget the whole picture of what it is. And it's not always convenient being a leader. It's not always comfortable being a leader. And I think that's why people sometimes shy away from it. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be responsible for that. Then don't be a leader.
Don't be a leader. And don't be coaching kids. Don't be coaching kids if you're not going to take some of that with you.
Yeah. Don't pretend to be a leader. I mean, what I was saying to my son was, we are, I'm a Northern California native of San Francisco Bay Area. And thank God the Warriors finally found themselves, because when I was a kid, they didn't know what they were. and my kids have been able to be present to a pretty extraordinary team as of late. And so my son obviously wants to shoot 3-pointers all day long, which I think any kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he is the tallest kid on the team. And I'm like, dude, I get it. I really do. I get it. You want to shoot threes and have the glory and all that jazz. And if you were dropping threes, be a different conversation. You're not. You're not. And I'm telling you, man, I love you. I'm your dad. And this is kind of part of my job is to, someone may not say this to you because your coach isn't, but let's try something. Let's try something. You're the tallest, if not one of the tallest kids on the team, if not on the teams you play against. Yes? No? Okay, yes. Great. You like shooting threes. Are you shooting more threes and making them or missing them? Missing them. Great. All right. Let's try to play center. Let's be in the position that you've been given. Mm-hmm. Centers don't shoot threes. So let's see what happens. And so we started practicing him, getting him to understand boxing out and, all the stuff that it requires to get to stay under the basket, get the rebound, put it back up, drop twos. I'm like, Dash, my guess is that if you just tried this, just box out, you already are rebounding more than anybody. If you just are down there and you get open for your guards and you rebound, let's just see what happens. I might be wrong, but let's just see what happens. Just for a game. What happened? He dropped twos all day. He was putting them up, rebound, putting them up. You know what I mean? I was like, okay, I'm not telling you what so. You just showed me what so. So what do you want to do? What do you think is the better idea? How do you think you could best serve your team? So it's like I want him to have the experience of what works, not for me to tell him the experience of what works.
They got to find a way. And here's the wild part about it is that he is tall now, but may not grow anymore. And eventually he continues to play. His tallness will become the average height. So now you've got a skill of posting someone who's your height or higher. You continue to work on your shooting game. And just because you're not shooting right now doesn't mean you won't get to shoot in a year or so.
That's right.
14, 15. I think he said 14 or 15.
He's 14.
So in a couple of years, some travel team, travel ball, summer league, fall league, high school. Yeah, there's a whole lot of time to work on threes. And by the way, you can get to college if you play that far and get there. And you can learn how to shoot them then because I guarantee you won't be the tallest person.
Right.
And whatever you are now,
no, he won't.
You better learn to shoot a three or you won't get no shots.
That's right.
But you have a skill that it comes down to giving the team what the team needs. That's right. Leadership. That's leadership. Right. It's sacrifice, right? You got to give up your desire to shoot threes and look glorious, but on the grind, they had to stop you on the inside, and you're making it so they can shoot threes. Again, we're going to get strategy. Right. But that's the part when you start talking about the value of leadership and what you do and do your job well, that opens up the avenue for other people to do their jobs and them to do those well.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, it's an interesting conversation, and obviously, me talking to my 14-year-old son about playing basketball on a bad team it's an interesting learning space, right? Because obviously it all plays into life, right? I mean,
it does.
Obvious. And I'm not the coach. And I don't even pretend to be the coach. There's a guy on the team. There's a father on the team who actually has an extensive background playing basketball. He was very good when he played. He's kind of taken this leadership dad role outside of what the coach is up to. He acknowledges there's a coach. He respects the coach. He invites the coach to these outside practices that we do. So he's not like telling the kids, don't listen to your coach. That's not what he's doing. But nonetheless, there is this amazing opportunity where we're like saying, okay, this guy who's the coach, it's not his strong suit. We're not going to try to make him a better coach. But these kids do want to play, and they keep on showing up. So how can we help them? How can we support them and show them that, you know what, they're better than this? And then he was talking to them. I was like so moved by how he was sharing with them because it was really well rounded. It wasn't just drilling them. It wasn't just making them feel bad for not winning. You know what I mean? It was so well rounded because it all plays into their whole life. The last thing I want you guys to do is get used to losing and to accept that as the norm, or to think that, you know what, because you lost, you failed, or that failure means anything wrong. And you know what? You don't, just because you failed doesn't mean you lost. Because you failed, you have an opportunity to learn something. What can you learn? Like just giving them these ways of seeing what's going on in a way that can empower them. It's such an amazing. I mean, you obviously do this on a regular basis, so I'm preaching to the choir.
Right.
But I know what it must feel like to do that, and why I'm assuming why it turns you on.
It does. Nothing better than watching an athlete, a young athlete, or a coaching client get it. Like, oh wow, I see.
Get it. It is.
Right, you get it out of. I'm working with a speaking client right now, and she's trying to put together her message, and she couldn't get it together. It's like we're working on the content creation portion of my little training formula, and I just went role play with her because she had a little actress background. I role play with her, and I was the person, and she would see her, and I was the other person, and I started asking questions, and she started answering the questions, and then she was belaboring the point. I said, "Look, I got to get off in 2 stops. Can you help me out right now? I need 2 to 3 things." And she rattled off 2 or 3 things. I said, "Thank you very much." I wrote that down, and she says, "How did you do that? What do you mean? How did you get that out of me? It's been in my head." I said, "All I needed to, you got to listen. You just need to listen to what's being said." And these are things that keep rising to the surface. But until the coach can get in there and work with you and get it out of you, got to, we go back to that trust thing, and you make it go. So that's the thing I like. And she was able to then get out of that block and open up the rest of her presentation to get it together to where it's almost ready to go live. That is an awesome feeling. It's an awesome feeling.
Yeah. No, it is. It's great. And, I think, at least in my experience with, it's so weird, I love the word wisdom, and yet to declare oneself as having wisdom always feels narcissistic. It always feels, it's like it's like saying you're classy. It's like there's just words you don't use to define yourself, right? But there is something to be said about you and I have been around the block. Mm-hmm. We've made some mistakes. We've fallen on our face probably more times than we'd like to admit. But the distinction is that we've gotten back up. We've dusted ourselves off and we've got back in the game, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think that, to a certain degree, is what gives one wisdom, right?
I think you're exactly right. I think in those moments of adversity, since we're talking sports and whatnot, and cohesiveness, there is the reason we do preseason conditioning or conditioning at all is really not about only getting your lung capacity up to be ready fourth quarter with 2 minutes left. That's not really it. The other side of this is that we are building community and bond, because when you suffer and struggle with people and have a common struggle, you become closer because you've succeeded as a unit.
Yeah.
And there's those moments of adversity and down and distraught and I want to quit, and someone comes over who's been bleeding with you trying to run and says, "You don't quit, I don't quit. We're going to make this." If you don't do it at that moment, you're never going to do it. That's the thing about growth and wisdom. Like you said, until the struggle happens, until the divorce and the low times and the dark times and whatever, after the business closed, the dark times, whatever, after the knee replacements, the dark times, whatever, all those areas were like the space where you grow mushrooms and stuff that grows in the dark. Eventually, it needs that to grow.
Totally.
If it's going to grow and be whatever, it's a shade. Shade fruits. They don't grow in the sun. They grow in the dark. They grow in shade stuff. But they're still valuable, and they still offer something to the world. And that's kind of where you talk about your breakthrough moments. You've got to recognize in these dark moments that you got to come out on the other side and take this wisdom.
I think it's like seasons. I always kind of remind myself of seasons.
I agree.
And I think that we, unfortunately, most people isolate, or they surround themselves with people who aren't on their side, right? Mm-hmm. And it's easy to forget, especially when you're in deep winter, that spring is on the way, right? We literally forget it. And that if we can remind ourselves that this period of fall and winter, when things fall off, when things die, that it is only the preparation for rebirth. And it's cyclical. Mm-hmm. And if we can remind ourselves of that, or have others around us who can remind us of that, we can make it, and we can get on the other side. And I always, one of the things that inspired this whole podcast itself is the notion of breakthroughs, right? But we all know anybody who has had a breakthrough is pretty present to, whether they want to admit it or not, that the other side of that coin is a breakdown.
Right.
It's a breakdown.
It's a breakdown.
And it's usually not particularly pleasant. And I think that it's easy to forget also that during a breakdown, when you are at your worst, at your most miserable, if you can remind yourself there is light at the end of the tunnel, even you can't see it, or you're just this side, you're just the other side to a breakthrough. It's not always easy by any means. You and I both know this, right? And unfortunately, I think that we end up sometimes perpetuating the winter.
Yep.
We perpetuate the darkness and the despair because we don't know how to get out of it. So what ends up happening is we end up focusing on it, not on what's possible, not on what is on the other side. And it's easy to get stuck. And, having a coach, having people around you who are supporting you, I believe is key. And what we as human beings, we're not trained. I don't know about you. I didn't come out of college and go, I'm going to go surround myself with people who believe in me as being extraordinary. I'm not going to have coaches or train with coaches. I was never trained to do that. I was never taught to do that. I don't think most humans are. They think, I got to figure this out on my own.
Right. And then that figuring out on your own, like I assert in the book, if you can just recognize that you hold your own key to that start point, that explosion point, or that drive, yes, people can come along and they're going to support. But even their support can only be as good as you're ready to receive it. That's so right. Until we get ourselves off the bench first and get ourselves ready to get in the game by doing the hard work, by doing the growth moments, and then preparing to go, then you only be able to move forward. That's the key. Can I give my own self permission first to be successful? You could give it to me all day, Jordan. Mark, your podcast is going to be dope. Until I believe it myself, it really doesn't matter.
Absolutely not.
Does not matter one bit. And then it's more like confirmation. So when you are in your space and you're doing whatever and people start speaking, as I'm sure it's happened to you, oh my God, I could totally see you doing this. Your show is great. I love what you're doing. Da-da-da. Keep going. Okay, that's just confirmation that you are in your space, you are in your lane. Well, they wouldn't say those if you weren't in that space until you gave yourself permission to even start this podcast on this topic. Somewhere along the way, you shared this with somebody, and I don't even know all your journey. Someone said this was a dumbass idea. And said, I don't understand that whole podcasting thing. It's a fad. It's not going to last. Yeah, it did. And it's like a thing. And so you kept on moving beside that. And that's what it takes. It takes that internal connect to move forward and keep going and chase your thing. And you get what you want. And you get where you want to go. I'll
even take it one step further. Yes, we have to give ourselves permission, right? We, is what I'm hearing you're saying and agreeing, we got to believe it first, right?
Yes. Yep.
And we got to believe it in the face of anything that comes at us. So, because things are going to come at us. Not everyone's, like you said, not everyone's going to agree with you. And when people come at you with the naysaying, I honestly, because I'm so clear that this is what I'm doing, because it turns me on, lights me up, because a number of other reasons, right? The idea that I could find all kinds of evidence as to why not to do this, right? Yep. Would that serve my mission, my purpose? No,
not at all.
Not at all. So why entertain it? But if I didn't believe it, it's much easier to slip into, all right, maybe I shouldn't do that. I mean, people think it's not going to. It takes me so much time. I mean, I can do all kinds of really. I could talk myself into or out of doing this podcast on any day.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Truth.
I choose to talk myself into it. In fact, honestly, I don't even need to talk myself into it. To be quite honest, it's pretty much I'm talked into it. But 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 there is something to be said about it is necessary for you to believe it first. Oftentimes, more oftentimes than not, we go backwards, right? Like, okay, well, if I see it working, then I'll believe it.
Mm-hmm.
It's backwards. If I see it, I'll believe it. How about if you believe it such that you see it? If you believe it, you will take actions consistent with your belief.
That's
and
true. That is true.
That action you take will manifest what you see.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's like if I was like, oh, well, I'll do a podcast and then I'll feel great and feel amazing and turned on. Well, now how about if I'm turned on and lit up and like excited to share, and then I get to see this amazing podcast that people like and this share. Well, you know what I mean? So it's sometimes just flipping that part of the process in and of itself. Stop waiting for something to show up and start creating it. What would you say over the last few years or so, or even before, would be one of those hurdles that you've had to continually overcome? Something that just kind of keeps on showing up. You know, like you're obviously a guy who has training and has coaches and has mentors, and you know you're walking the walk, right? But you're human.
Yeah.
What do you tend to have to continue to grapple with, and how do you do that?
Yeah, so I continue to grapple with is sometimes my own limiting beliefs of, will I succeed at something? Will it work? Will it actually manifest as you have put it out there to do? And it plagues me. It plagues me, and I continue to move forward with it. And I think part of the process of being in a growth and wisdom moment is it may be something that I will never fully eliminate out of my life, but I will fully try to control it, and when it shows up, know how to deal with it better. Sometimes we don't ever get rid of the ailment. We learn how to manage it and manage it a whole lot better, or we see it coming, or we recognize our triggers and you avoid certain things. So when something is working, like for instance, I started my Off the Bench Live program, which was the radio show moved to live, and I did it for a birthday. It was nice. I moved it again and did it for another birthday a year later. And then I did it a third time 6 months later. And then I want to now grow it. I still have, no one's going to show up. What if nobody comes? What if I'm not going to buy the ticket? What if the ticket's too high? Whatever. But I'm still moving forward. And people are like, Mark, come on, this is a great idea. Yeah, it's awesome. And I'll be like, it's a great idea. And I go home like, but what if nobody really does show up though? And so this past, Jordan, I'm being totally transparent. And so this past time, one of my coaches just cross-checked me, just straight up cross-checked me and said, what is the intent? Can you remember why you started this in the first place? Yep. I said, yeah, I started this to help people, give them a chance to get on the stage and train people and whatever, and the network. And she goes, did that happen on this date at this time? Yes. Then what's the problem? You achieved your goal. If you want to change the outcome, change the intent on the way in the door. So I was like, oh, wow, you're right. And so I now move forward and I double check my intentions, and I check that this is what I'm going to get done. If money is involved and profits involved, then you make that part of the intention. If it's not, don't get mad when nobody shows up and you don't make any money.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the conversation we had about winning and being a winner. They're two different things. That's it. Are you going to have the program deliver what it's going to deliver and build your brand and take the slow grow? Or are you going to try to, just make all this money and go whatever? I'm on the slow growth stage because I really, really want to help people get into the speaking game and get their message out. Yeah. So we're going to stay in that arena and get people to move in that direction by this program. So that is probably one of my biggest challenges. And a lot has to come from when I lost the business. You talking about some scary going out and try it again stuff. Right. That'll shake you.
Sure.
But I also recognize that I cannot sit on that fear. I got to keep moving. So people say, oh, I conquered it. And you know what? I don't know if I conquered it. I can manage it. We can do battle. Some days it wins.
I don't think, I guess circumstances are circumstances, right? Life's going to keep lifing.
Yep.
Right? It's like we can't stop circumstances from showing up. What we can do is manage how we respond to them. That's kind of what we're saying, right? So what do you set up for yourself? What strategies do you set up for yourself such that, and it sounds like one of them is obviously speaking to a mentor, speaking to a coach, right?
Yes.
Because that mentor or coach right sizes you. That mentor or coach recenters you. or supports you in recentering yourself. He's not doing it to you. You're representing yourself to what you're intending, to what you're committed to the possibility you're creating, right?
Exactly.
You get back into that space, you get back into the present, you can be unstoppable.
Yes. And you're right. And
what else do you do?
You have to remind yourself of your successes. I just think that we don't stop for a hot second, look at history and go, how did I overcome? Oh, I did these things. I did do that. And you know what I'm saying? We want to forget the trivial sometimes, and we don't, unless it's some big thing. Oh, even then, the biggest thing we do, we kind of downplay it. Right. Celebrate your wins. You got to celebrate your successes.
Yes.
Even if it's small. Jordan, one of the things I'm doing now, I think I'm going to start a movement. I think I'm going to start a movement to kill the to-do list. I'm changing the to-do list. I no longer do to-do lists. Don't ask me about mine. It is now called an achievement list. Every single time I knock something off my list, I have achieved something. That whole word does something totally different to you.
Words are powerful, man. Words are powerful.
You make you feel so. I'm now doing an achievement list. I've done it for now a couple of weeks. I see the difference. Even if I don't get it done, I'm like, I don't feel like I've done. Look at all that I got done today. Wow, that is achievement.
Look what I achieved today, as opposed to look what I did today.
Right. Success is not one major event. It's a series of small wins along the way.
Absolutely.
Well, that's what I preach. So I'm like, but I wasn't lined up with it. I'm like, oh yeah, but now I'm on it. It's like the achievement list, dude. Let's do this.
I love that.
And so I have to go back to the things that I know I've done and remind myself of the success and say, you know what? You are dope. You are dope, and go ahead and embrace your dopeness and keep it moving. So, and be okay with it. And then those are the kind of things that I do to remind myself, get grounded, center in meditation, just taking breaks. I think grinding, you grind so hard that you forget to take a break.
Yep.
Entrepreneurs are the worst.
Well, because it's about, and you know this as an athlete, recovery.
Yeah, it's about
you've got to give yourself a break to recover.
And we don't. And that's the mental recovery is the roughest. Physically, take an Epsom salt bath and some Advil and we good to go. But that mental mind, if you can't learn to A, shut it down, B, allowed to be free, and C, stop, shouting at you, you're going to have a problem.
Yeah. You're going to break down. You will break down.
You will break down. You will break down. You're absolutely correct.
So it is what I hear, obviously, and we're, again, preaching to the choir, but that's why it's no accident that we're, doing this episode. But because honestly, I think we're in a similar space and a similar intention, which is, I'm not retiring on this podcast. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I'm doing this because it feels good to do it. I was having conversations like this with people who are close to me anyway, right? We'd have these kinds of dialogues about what it is to be human, what it is to be extraordinary, what it is to fail to get back up. All this stuff that we talk about. I'm continually seeking and exploring and wanting to expand and better myself and acknowledge that I have no idea what I'm doing. You know what I mean? I'm figuring it out. I'm working it out as I go. Some things work, some things don't. So the ability to take the mistakes, to take where I did break down and what I learned from that, and to share it, like what you said, when I talk to people and I share a perspective based on my experience of what I did and how it worked for me, and they go, oh my God, I didn't even think of that. And they have a breakthrough for themselves. Dude, that's gold. That gets the dopamine going. It feels good when somebody else, like you said, gets it. And you got to be a part of that. You got to support someone getting it. And it comes not from I'm better than, or I know something that you don't, but it's like, listen, I got something. Can I share this with you? And try it. If it works, fantastic. If it doesn't, throw it away.
Right.
That's all. All I'm asking is if you want to play a big game, you're going to have to show up. You're going to have to put your uniform on, tie it, lace up your shoes, and play, or stop bitching.
Exactly. You have a choice here. You have a choice you can make. Yeah. You have a choice.
People are like, well, I don't know what to do. Well, you know what? There's a lot of options out there, and there's either you're taking action or you're being a victim.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unfortunate sometimes. I mean, I've had conversations with people, and I've gotten a little bit better at not pussyfooting around it with people. To say to them, "Hey, you keep on doing this, and you keep on complaining about this, and you keep on expressing and showing me that your life is this, this, and this, and it's not where you want it to be. What are you doing about it? What choices or actions are you taking contrary, or you keep on doing the same thing over and over again?" And it's sometimes a little bit of, tough love is what's required.
Exactly right. Exactly.
A little bit of tough love. So let's see. What would you say in your experience, people who know you well, is there something that people who know you might be surprised to learn about you?
I think people would be surprised to learn how creative I actually am. I like to do crafty stuff. Awesome. I do ceramics. I make my own jewelry from time to time. Not a big painter, but I like sometimes doing stuff with my hands. And ceramics was like a place of peace when I first started doing it. And I would actually go to the pottery place and paint and actually fall asleep. That's how relaxing it was.
Huh.
And making jewelry is the same thing for me. I'll make, bracelets or whatever for friends and, everything that had to turn into a business, but it's just something cool to do. And then you walk around.
It sounds like a meditation.
Right. And you make, you walk around. Oh, it's a nice bracelet. Dude, you buy it? No, I made this. You made, yeah, man. And so you making your own stuff. That is cool. So there are people be surprised that actually have a very, very, very creative side. And sometimes I let it out.
Is there an attribute, something about yourself when you were younger that you can look back and go and realize or remember that you thought was a weakness that has transformed itself into an asset?
It was actually probably the ability to speak, to put together thoughts, to get up and not be afraid to stand and speak. Mm-hmm. I mean, it goes back to the church, Easter play, Mother's Day play, all of that. And you had to learn, and I enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed it. And people were like, oh, I hate it. And I said, well, this is probably not going to take me anywhere. But you get to college, you major in communications, you do a little here, a little bit there. And now all of a sudden, you're on stages and talking to hundreds of people who are listening to your every word and seeking you out to come talk to them and encourage and motivate. I think that was probably be the biggest one, that and my smile. I've been told I have a shit resting face. But once I smile, it's like, whoa, where'd that come from? And so I think that's
so funny.
That's so cool. And I realized that is the weapon. That is the weapon that gets me in the door. And then, you just say what you have to say.
My wife calls mine asshole resting face. So we are cut from the same cloth, Mark. Now,
right.
Because honestly, I've had to kind of deal with that with myself. It's an interesting exercise, and I actually suggest it to people sometimes. Consider for a week, ask people who you trust. You don't necessarily have to ask a stranger, although why not? Maybe ask people how you occur in the world. How do people see me in the world out there? It's one thing when we look at ourselves, we have an idea of who we are, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's all based on truth or made up bullshit, which unfortunately some of it is, but asking how others see you is an interesting exercise. And in doing that, I, uncovered some really nice feedback. One of them was asshole resting face. But at the same time, there was something beneficial about it. There was something I had to look at that was, okay, I can occur aloof to people. Mm-hmm. And do I want to occur aloof to people? Or, okay, you know what? Maybe I occur aloof to people so I can be aware of that. So when I'm in a room or when I'm with a group of people and I'm getting from them that maybe they're not responding to me in the way I'd like them to respond, maybe they're feeling threatened by me. Maybe they're feeling like I don't like them. Yeah, whatever it is, right? So considering what the other person, we're so wrapped up in what other people are thinking about us, we forget, we think, oh gosh, all these people are thinking all these things about me. They're not. They're more worried about themselves than they are about you, but they're bouncing off of you. So for me to look at, okay, you know what, maybe I'm a little bit of aloof, then okay, maybe throw a smile in there, maybe open the conversation with them instead of waiting for them to talk to you. So you adjust.
Right.
You adjust. What would you say? Now you said this might be part of the answer, but you said that one of your obstacles is your willingness to accept that you can succeed in ways that you want to succeed, right? Mm-hmm. What would you say does that wrap into some sort of a fear, like a overarching fear that you have?
Yeah, I think it does. It wraps into that constant reminder of having lost everything and trying to rebuild. You lose your business. That's a dark journey in itself. Being so young and trying to come back from it. So you kind of have the aversion to fail. You're like, I can't fail at this. Well, if I don't really try it, then do I really fail at it? So that drives. And what I've kind of learned to move to over the years is instead of that fuel consuming me and burning me up, I actually have now turned it inward to drive. And so it makes the drive hard. So people now go, Mark, you're so driven. I said, yeah, if you know what was chasing me, you'd be running too. So it's that kind of mindset. I don't want to experience that again. The only way not to experience that again is to make sure you're calculating, you're moving forward, you do things, you follow through. And then it may happen. Let's be clear. I'm not saying it won't happen, but it's less likely to happen if you're better prepared for things. And so when I'm doing something new or I'm trying to grow something out, I have to overcome that hurdle first. And when I get over that hurdle and keep moving, then you can keep going. So what I pride myself in and why I'm most proud of Mark's accomplishments in these arenas is that it has not stopped me.
Yeah.
It has not stopped me. And people are like, oh, you need to be positive all the time. I said, that's mess. You're not going to be positive all the time. The question is, how quick do you recover? Like that's you said, in basketball, it's like in sports, it's the next play. How quickly can you get ready for the next play is the person who's ready to go win. Yeah. So they may exist, but do you wallow there? Do you stay there? As long as you don't get caught there and go back and just, reminisce and evoke feelings again and all that, then at that point you need to go get some counseling and get through that, which I had to do. So that is the driver. So just being transparent, that is the driver.
Well, right. And I mean, honestly, Tony Robbins, I remember listening to him many, many years ago, and this is not just Tony Robbins, but the motivating factor for most of us is really somewhat simple, right? It's pain or it's pleasure. Mm-hmm. We're doing things for one or two reasons, or not doing things for one or two reasons, right? And if one of the exercises that I remember him doing, it was like a 15-year exercise essentially, where, like you said, you get into a situation and you want it to go a certain way, you get caught up in the fear, right? But then you acknowledge it and you move through it. Right. But there's an interesting exercise he talks about as far as if things aren't going the way you want them to go and you want to shift, you want to change the path you're on, his invitation, and I'm bastardizing this exercise, but essentially he said, okay, so imagine your world right now the way it is, in the way that it's not going the way you want it to go, for example, right? You want things to be different, but they are the way they are. Now imagine your world, if you keep doing the same thing in a year. Close your eyes, imagine yourself, be there a year from now. What's your world look like? Is it better? Is it worse? Is it the same? How do you feel? Are you sick? Are you healthy? Are you wealthy? Are you whatever it is, right? And take yourself on that journey. Eyes closed. Then go 5 years into the future. How are you now? Now 10 years, and 15, you know what I mean? Like you put yourself out there. By the time you get to 15 years, if you are not absolutely fucking either dead or just miserable beyond belief, ready to hang yourself, you're not doing the exercise. You know? But if you can get yourself so worked up into a place of, and here you are, you're just here. You're just here now. You're not going anywhere. But if you can do that exercise and get yourself to that place of, oh my God, I got to do something now, because that is not going to be who I am. Then it's an interesting exercise to kind of trip yourself into action, to taking a new action, at least. I mean, literally a new action. And it goes the other way. You can visualize yourself into an extraordinary future as well. Both are made up, right? They're both made up. They haven't happened. But either way around it's an interesting exercise I found in tricking oneself into taking new action. So let's see. What would you say is your ultimate, I guess, mission? And then what are your I guess, overarching goal for 2019?
My overarching mission is to get people from the bench into the starting lineup of life. How we get there is up for debate. You know, we're either coaching or we're working out or we're doing whatever. But to really give people to start on their journey, I feel like where I am in dealing with life is I've been overcoming things, and I want to take my effort in overcoming things to encourage others to overcome their thing and get moving and stay with it and don't quit. That's the overarching thing. That's the whole catchphrase of get off the bench.
Yeah.
Is get off the bench and into the starting lineup of life. Well, you got to overcome something. You got to, first of all, be prepared and come overcome your fears and whatever, because there's nothing worse than getting to that table, that buzzer's gone, and it's about to hit the buzzer, and you see the action happening in front of you, and there's decisions that need to be made. I can go sit back down, and that'll be it. I'll never play again. Or when the buzzer calls and the action stops enough for you to get in, you got to perform.
Yeah.
You have to perform. You perform the best of your ability with the time that you have before you either get pulled out to sit down again or you go into something else. So I want people to go do those things. And a lot of people here out there who are sitting on the next best thing for them. And they're not even trying to take any action to get there, but they're wondering why they're miserable. They're wondering why they won't get over it.
That in of itself, I think, is a crux of it right there, is that people are complaining that they're not getting what they want in life, and they don't even know where they are in life. They don't even know where they want to be in life. They're just really good at complaining about where they are, right? They're blaming others for it. Oftentimes, they're blaming their circumstances or they're blaming people. And one of the courses I've taken in at a company called Landmark Worldwide, kind of just speaking to what you're saying, which is, being getting off the side. Was you getting off the sideline?
Getting off the bench.
Getting off the bench. Sorry, getting off the bench. Is whether you're a person who lives in the stands or a person who lives on the court. And this, again, kind of comes back to whether or not you have chosen to declare yourself as somebody who lives in the stands or someone who plays on the court. And if you're someone who wants to play on the court, then you have to act like someone who plays on the court. If you're someone who lives in the stands, then you're not going to have an extraordinary life. You're going to be the person who complains and comments and ridicules and judges, and you know what I'm saying? That's what people do in the stands.
Right. And that's true. And they're living in the stands, and they're not. They are, they're a part of history. They're not history makers.
That's right. They're commenting on the players.
Right. All they're doing. Oh yeah. And then partly think you can do better or better than the coach, but you won't coach.
Monday morning quarterbacks. Monday morning quarterback,
and think you've actually done something important with your life.
Right.
You haven't, because I don't care how bad it is on the course or on the field or wherever you are, how bad the shellacking is, whatever. When you walk off and get past that feel of loss or the exhilaration of win, you go, "Wow, I did that. I went through that thing and all the practice and all the whatever you've done to get to that moment for that short period of time, and you finished it. You completed the task. You go, whew, man, what's next? Let's go do that again."
Right.
That's the feeling that you're after. You're after that, and you can't get it eating popcorn in the stands.
No, you cannot. And I think, once you distinguish yourself as someone who's playing on the court as opposed to someone who's not, your life will shift. But it does, I believe, it does require a conscious choice. It's not accidental. You're consciously choosing to be someone. I think the people who live in the stands are more oftentimes unconscious about it because it's easy. It's actually easy to be someone who lives in the stands. Mm-hmm. It takes something to be on the court.
Right.
Most of us
definitely takes something to be on the court.
Yeah, we don't want to put in all that time. Come on, that's for somebody else. So, and then as far as 2019 is concerned, what do you got planned?
19 is this the year. Every year I do a word of the year. I get on my Facebook Live at SpeakerMan87, and I do a word of the year. So this word for 2019 is transform or transformation for me. Yeah. And because I feel the shift coming on, I feel like all of the working in the background, the preparation is starting to now move me to another position. Thus the off the bench live that's going to happen in April, then again in May. But in May, I've done it in the DC area for the last couple of rotations. In May, for the birthday one, I'm taking it back home to Cleveland. So I'm gonna go back home and do my thing in the space where I grew, that people probably still, people still know who you are. They're going to come out. That is terrifying. I can go someplace that don't know me. Oh, okay, well, they don't come. They don't know me. But I got to go home and deal with maybe they don't come out. But guess what?
What if they do?
I'm doing something that I said I wanted to do. I'm checking this puppy off the list. We are going to move this thing. And again, it's about the growth factor. It's about the brand development. So 2019 is about growing the brand of Off the Bench, the podcast, the speaking, the speaker training, my core training program. It's about those items that will help other people do what they want to do. I go back to that conversation of understanding what the intent is. If this is the intent and to help people, then you're going to do these things because it's going to help someone. My last event, so there weren't a lot of people in the room, but everybody got something out of that day. And my whole thing was, it wasn't really about me. It wasn't. I could have got up there and talked for 3 hours. That's not a problem. We do that all the time. But it wasn't meant for me to speak 3 hours. It's meant for my other people to get up there and give their shine, their glow, and let other people see and cross-pollinate. So that is 2019. It's all about putting this program out here, getting it on the road, and developing my training courses so we can continue to help people take their message from out of the ether and get it to them on the stage so they can speak on their passion and help other people do what they got to do.
Well, that's fantastic. So everybody, Mark Wiggins, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. And for all of you, I look forward to you're listening to the next episode of Breakthroughs with Jordan Murphy, and follow me on Instagram. Also, again, don't forget, share it, rate it, review it, spread the word. If you like what you're hearing, spread it. And if you have a great idea, great story, which I know everybody does, and you want to share it, go to breakthroughswithjordanmurphy.com, the website, go to contacts, email me the idea. I'd love to hear your story and review it, and maybe I'll get a chance to share something on one of my podcasts. So again, have a wonderful day. And again, Mark, thanks so much.
Well, thank you, Jordan, for having me, and blessings to you and your audience and everybody. Get that breakthrough. And once you get to the other side of your breakthrough, I like to say this a lot, the success you're looking for to answer the desires of your heart are right on the other side of you showing up. Go do that and get off the bench.
Period. Amen. Thank you very much, Mark.